Global Star Network.
Transmission begins in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're listening to the voice of the Remnant Radio Network, hosted by Survival 401k founder and economist Ross Powell and founder of Homegrown Prepper and political commentator Chris Bauckham. Thank you for tuning in. This is a collaboration of dozens of former watchmen who now recognize the hour is late and the time for sounding the alarm from the rooftops has passed. Our team of contributors and guests, along with your hosts, are passionate and have been called to train up and equip you to stand strong during evil times. If you are here, you are the remnant. The signs are everywhere. Will we survive? The worst could happen. Fortify, prepare, and survive the coming storm. Only on Remnant Radio Network. Welcome to the Remnant Radio Network. I'm your co-host, Chris.
Hi, and I'm Ross Powell. Welcome to the show.
Rory and Chris from Don'tLetThemBurn.com are joining us today, and I couldn't be more excited for this particular topic or set of topics that we're going to talk about, because I think that all of our listeners will find it relevant. Primarily, what's been under assault in the American culture over the past 50 years is our biblical worldview, if you're a Christian especially. And the older I get and the more I read and the more I watch, the more I realize this is real. It's written. Understanding how Hollywood, music, Disney, comics, etc., are affecting our culture and what it means for us, among many topics, are the critical components that you're going to take away from this show if you're a listener. You're going to understand more about how the Luciferian model plays into what our children are paying attention to. No wonder our culture's falling apart. But no one does it quite like Rory and Chris do online in terms of breaking it down and helping us to understand precisely where the culture is at right now and precisely how we got here over the last 25 years. And so I'm so glad to have you on. I can't wait to share what you have with the audience. And also, I want people to know you can find out more about them at don'tletthemburn.com. They also have a YouTube channel with the same name.
Oh, thank you for having us. It's great to be here.
Welcome. How are you doing? Thank you for having us both.
Before we get started, did you check their file at the NSA as well? I'm sure they're being watched like us.
Most of the routing was going through Roswell, New Mexico, so I'm not sure what's up with that, but no, they're good. The guys are good. They had a lot of great stuff on YouTube. They've done a lot of good work with other people in the community that we try to reach to every day. And when I was reading up on both of you, Rory and Chris, I had a chance to go over your About page online, and I want to share a specific quote so that our audience can get to know you just a little bit better and understand where you're coming from and how you both met and started this incredible message that you're sharing with our people today. So here's the quote. While attending this church, I reconnected with Chris, and we started talking about some of the experiences that the Lord took us out of. As we continued talking, we started to tell our friends at church to stop listening to hip-hop music and not to join the church's ecumenical movement. We started corresponding more and more until we started studying together. We even taught a class on the dangers of hip-hop music, movies, and video games. After that night, the Lord laid it on Chris's heart to call the ministry Don't Let Them Burn. And you guys have been going strong ever since. Now, what was the year that you kicked off this outreach that you've been doing?
2014.
So in 3 small years, and really it's probably been less than 3 years, you've been able to garner quite a few people that resonate with the message of hope and eternal light in Christ. On the cultural side, I've heard these men talk about the symbolism of occultism in our culture through entertainment, including movies, comic books, music, and politics. Normally, we start our show with a rant, and our listeners know that. We talk a little bit about what's going on in the news, and then we're going to transition into what I'm understanding maybe a little bit about artificial intelligence, technocracy, and genetics, and how they're affecting the body of Christ here on earth and what we can do to prepare ourselves and to make use of it to spread his message. There's so many things going on in the news right now, I can hardly keep up. It's the same thing every week. It's blistering. In fact, I think Tucker Carlson and a few other people that are part of the big media are having to take breaks, for mental recuperation, mental health. It's just overwhelming what's going on. And this week, or it may have been over the weekend, we saw Trump supporters rush the stage for the Trump assassination play in New York. They yelled, "You have Scalise's blood on your hands." So things are getting pretty tense out here between the quote-unquote right and the left.
You're right. And I saw a story this morning that Bernie and Elizabeth Warren are escalating again, even though they said they were sorry in their sadness about people using violence and all of this kind of stuff. Then they said just over the weekend or yesterday about, well, do whatever it takes to get this to stop and fight and do unprecedented things and do all of this stuff to stop what the Trump's companion Republicans are doing. It's like, dude, you're just throwing gas on this fire. What is wrong with you? So they talk out of both sides of their mouth, and then they say, well, we deserve it because Trump said these ugly things, or it's like, really, guy, have you not looked at Berkeley? Have you not looked at all these campuses that are just lit on fire and all of the snowflakes? And it's just so one-sided on the anger and teaching people to be violent with their rhetoric versus the Christians and the Republicans are finally just had enough and are standing up and running the stage. I'm surprised they didn't try to burn it down or something. It's such hypocrisy by the Democrats and the liberals. It's progressives, you want to call it, or is unbelievable.
Yeah, there's an inversion of truth and reality out here. I've gotten to the point, kind of jokingly, I blame everything on CERN and it inverting the world at this point in reality. Even the Democrats are divided and the Republicans are divided between the never-Trumpers and the people that believe in Trump, and the Democrats are divided between those that are more moderate and those that are preaching violence out here. I saw in the news that there was a request, a Freedom of Information Act request from Judicial Watch for some of the unmasking that went on underneath National Security Advisor Susan Rice. And so they filed this request, and they were obviously looking for the information, which could hurt or help Trump either way, but definitely will hurt Obama. Unfortunately, and quite conveniently for members of the Obama administration, Judicial Watch has been informed by the National Security Council that records related to their requests cannot be shared because they have been transferred to the Barack Obama Presidential Library and will remain closed to the public for 5 years, which gives Trump time to stay in office. Now, there's a full letter, and I'll quote you from this article. Documents from the Obama administration have been transferred to the Barack Obama Presidential Library. You may send your request to the Obama Library. However, you should be aware that under the Presidential Records Act, presidential records remain closed to the public for 5 years after an administration has left office. So I find that a bit surprising, but not really, based on what we've already seen from the likes of the Clintons and everybody else that was also in power during his presidency.
Oh, right. And Loretta Lynch and all of those, that tomfoolery that went on with Bill Clinton, I'm sure all that stuff's been destroyed or moved and buried for sure. Speaking of the Democrats, Dianne Feinstein is wanting to investigate this, and people are starting to stir up saying this is really dirty. And are they going to actually have morals and have equilibrium on who they're going to go after, or is they're going to just bury it and just take their payments or whatever? So I would hope that somebody has a backbone.
Is unity even possible at this point? Clintons like to do their business on the tarmac, and they did the same with Loretta Lynch. And come to find out in another news piece, they had Mueller, the special investigator or prosecutor, help transfer that uranium back to Russia. Now, I believe that uranium was originally Russian and it got in the wrong hands, but nonetheless, they like to do a lot of business on the tarmac, and I'm sure there's something behind that. Now, I was reading, I have a section that I kind of call the accelerant for World War III. The USS Fitzgerald was surprisingly rammed by a Japanese boat operated by Filipino nationals, killing 7 U.S. sailors. That's been in the news. There's nothing suspicious there, though. It puts the ship out of commission for months at a time when tensions with Russia, China, and North Korea are at an all-time high. Do you think Filipino President Duarte may have had something to do with this after all that's gone on between these guys and the coalescing that's happening behind closed doors?
Well, Chris, I'd spent several years in the Navy, and I did a couple of deployments, and I was on the pointy end of one of those destroyers, driving the ship in front of Russian carriers in the Mediterranean, and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. But if you look at where they're impacting, sort of the forward quarter of the ship on the starboard side, and they're in the damages on the port side of the container ship, that means that they basically had to run into more, or the destroyer was trying to go forward, thinking that they were going to give way, and they didn't, and they used the law of gross tonnage rule for a lot at sea many times. But it's almost seemed like whoever was on the officer of the deck or whoever had the con, didn't see them or couldn't see them or something, because their radar should have had them, dead pegged in their mo boards and their, all of that stuff should have been telling them exactly they were on a collision course. They call it CBDR, constant bearing decreasing range, and you should be able to see that coming. There's no reason for them to hit them amidships like that, and down below the waterline, the captain's quarters were destroyed. Something fishy, at least from my knowledge of ship driving, that just doesn't happen. I mean, I see people. I knew people that ran aground and things like that, but to have a ship that big, what were they, like 200,000 tons or something, just huge. Compared to the Navy ship at 8 tons, 8,000 tons. So you're looking at it going, how in the hell could that happen?
I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was too big, and there was no reason for that to happen other than something.
Right.
There's accelerants for war, both in Asia and in the Middle East. And people may say, why are we covering this? But the reason we're covering it is not just for the threat of World War III or apocalyptic speak from the book of Revelation, but we're also covering it because there's a push for war, potentially or not potentially, I believe it's almost firm, to transition us into this new world order. And it does tie directly into our topic today, which is going to be artificial intelligence, among other things. So I'll go ahead and give the Middle East portion of this, and then we'll kind of get into the show topics today, if you're okay with that, Ross.
Works for me.
After the embassy in Iran was bombed, let's see, what was that, a week and a half ago, Ross?
Maybe 2.
Yeah, another incident nearly happened in Saudi Arabia. Iranians apparently tried to infiltrate and bomb an oil well, and it was foiled. Now, the report of turmoiling Syrian rebels in the aftermath of the Qatar crisis still stands, namely that this next major regional conflict appears set to be between Saudi Arabia and Iran, or Iran, whichever you want to call it, and all it needs is a catalyst. And that catalyst nearly presented itself overnight when the Saudis interrupted this plot. So there's a lot going on there. And then if you take the fact that China and Iran were conducting military drills in the Straits of Hormuz, China's staking their claim over there on the oil fields. And then you've got China, who seems to be bent on war if they can't get their way peacefully. And here's why I say this. China's recently been attempting to have the U.S. sign onto a fourth communique under which the U.S. would no longer consider Taiwan as an ally or deal with it in any military or diplomatic terms. In effect, the U.S. would peacefully decline and leave the Western Pacific to China, according to this article. The White House rejected it prior to the meeting of the U.S. and Chinese presidents on April 6th and 7th at Mar-a-Lago. It was raised again by Kissinger, now in the pay of the Chinese government, again according to this article, at his meeting with President Trump on May 10th. China, the U.S., Japan, and Vietnam are all expecting war. China may have claimed all of the South China Sea, but Vietnam still has 17 island bases there. These are a major long-term embarrassment to China. Vietnam will not give them up voluntarily, so China is going to attempt to remove them by force, thus their current buildup and their ambitious warfare capabilities. China would also attack Vietnam along their land border, putting maximum pressure on Hanoi. And satellite imagery reveals that this is what's happening. There's a buildup in covered buildings where they're putting all of their military down in bunkers they've been building as well. So the world seems bent on this change. We are being pushed out. Others are kind of being ushered in. With that comes much of what Rick Wiles on True News has talked about with artificial intelligence, the global brain, the central nervous system, and singularity. So guys, I want to transition into an opinion here and have you jump in on this. And I had a chance to think about the cultural occultism that you have in some of your YouTube videos talked about at depth, and then singularity. And here is what my thoughts are. We are being misled just as the rest of the world is on the precipice of disaster. I find it interesting that Hollywood is so infected by occultism and satanic practices. I always knew that the theater and film had dark, seedy, right-brain characters, known as actors, with a propensity for certain ungodly lifestyles. The most dramatic, the most unstable, the most likely to engage in risky drug use and sexual behavior. What strikes me is the pure symbolism between acting versus real life. We've all heard that actors, for example, get paid far more to play the part of a policeman than a real policeman. The symbolism in idol worship is that it pays more to be like than to be with Satan than to be true to your God-given role in this life. The other symbolism, and perhaps more important, is that of a mirror image of Christ or God. The message being that Satan is God on earth by imitation only. The logic might follow that any act of imitation is an act of the occult. It is in the image of God's creation rather than creation itself. And when you're not God, your creations tend to lack light. In the art of imitation, the imitators can only create dark and bless it with darkness. As for singularity, in my mind, it's not the merging of technology and man, but rather man and the devil. We collectively are being merged in an effort to create God in the flesh, and CERN exists most likely to go back in time and prevent Jesus from being placed on the cross to forgive the sins of man. And that's where we'll start our show, guys. We can run with artificial intelligence and everything else. I'm so excited to have you on.
Well, that's just great. Just break in just real quick, but they're saying that people are going to use CERN to go back in time to prevent Jesus from being crucified and resurrected?
Correct.
Wow.
Wow.
Rory and Chris, you can run with that one. You know more than me. Please,
Well,
I want to touch on what he said about the darkness, because I just watched a movie called The Mummy, and it's all about Satan or Seth, whatever name. They mention it in the movie that he's going to embody Tom Cruise's character, and then they're going to create a dark universe. That's what Universal is up to in this film. So it's very interesting what you just illustrated and what they're doing in this franchise. That it's not starting off very well right now. The movie flopped, but think about that dark universe that encompasses everything that God created. They want it to be black, sick, dark, vile.
just as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be when the Son of Man comes. Matthew 24:37. And you have other books that talk about it. In the book of Jasher, an ancient Hebrew book, it's referred to in the Bible in Joshua 10:13 and 2 Samuel 1:18. It talks about how in the book of Jasher, how the sons of mankind in those days took from cattle of the earth and beasts of the field and fowls of the air and taught the mixing of one species with another. Now, I am not saying that I have read the book. I'm just giving you an illustration, okay, from that book. But what we are seeing, like you said in that article, and I never spoke to you before, we never had a conversation about what we were going to do. We didn't write it out on paper. But this is where how the Holy Spirit does what he does to tell his people. You see, we have something that's coming that's so dark that I don't understand if believers or followers of Christ understand what's coming. You're talking about them mixing what looks like it's light with darkness. And we see that, like Chris said earlier, in movies. It's not only in one movies, it's in the Marvel movies, it's in everything. It's everywhere now. And we have scientists for the first time in history that can look at the DNA strand or the DNA structure of an animal, of a mushroom, and say, you know what? This mushroom is turning dark too quickly. Why don't we move out that particular genome or that particular piece of the gene that allows that thing to get dark? And now men are saying that we can be gods. So they have turned from we have turned from worshiping God, what we are called to do, to saying, well, no, we can do this. This is where we are today.
Yes. I want to do an illustration from Genesis down to Revelation. And we find in Genesis 3, Satan beguiled Eve, and then she got her husband to eat the fruit with her. And then from there, God gave them judgment, and he put the angel around the garden and the sword. God told Adam and Eve they can't eat from the tree of life anymore. And so there you see God making a judgment on life also, because they would have stayed in their sin if they ate from the tree of life. They would have stayed in their sin forever, right? God stopped that. And then we go to Genesis 6, and he said, man is only going to live for 120 years. Now, we know that after Genesis 6, that man lived, 800, 600, 900 years, but we see a fall off as it goes on. But there in Genesis 6, we see where the angels came in and they did what they did with men, or women, I should say. Everything was corrupt, even down to the animals. There's people out there that make different suppositions about this, but I'm just going to leave it to where it was all defiled. So we have 120 years that man will live. And the 600th year of Noah's life, the flood came, and everything was wiped out. And then by Genesis 11 now, we see the Tower of Babel coming into play. And we all spoke one language, right? I want you to hone into that fact that we spoke one language. So we built this tower to reach up to heaven, and you could say we tried to open a stargate or whatever it was, but we're going to reach into God's realm. God came down and said, wow, look at this. They're doing what they could do because they speak one language. So we're going to confound the languages. And they did that there. And from there, we spread all over the earth. So there was another judgment. Then by Daniel 24, we see God telling Daniel to seal up the book, because the time is going to come where man is going to go to and fro, and knowledge will increase, right? So we're in a time now, if you look over the last 100 years or so, we went from horse and buggy to planes, trains, automobiles, flying into space, iPhones, computers, internet, you name it, electrical grids all over the place, right? We've moved at such a rapid rate that because generations are a little bit smaller now, 40 years or whatever, we don't really notice the impact until we look back. So we go from where we are now. Let's look into the book of Revelation. What do we see happening? We see us forming a one world government, a one world religion, and a one world economic system. And this is all bringing us back to speaking one language. Think about that, right? Right now, Skype has an app where you can translate 40 languages in real time. Babelfish has another that you could translate 8 languages in real time. There's also a plugin coming in from Microsoft for PowerPoint that will translate 60 languages in real time. And so we have all this knowledge flying everywhere, whether it's good or bad. But we see we're coming back to the same place that we were in the plain of Shinar by the Tower of Babel. The languages are coming back to be one, and then we can commit a greater sin. Why do we think that all these technological movements are moving so fast? Why is there such a convergence on every area? It's not just the languages, it's not just the technology, it's the insanity. And you touched on it earlier. You know what? In a word, we should be kind of glad that we see the insanity that's coming out from the left, because it was so covered up before. As soon as Donald Trump got in office, boom, we were like, what is going on? And so before I go on, somebody else interject.
I find that probably the common language is some mix of what you just said and computer code. Computer code is the common language. In my humble opinion, this is eerily reminiscent of Babel, and I almost have a feeling that many people have been blinded at this point.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yes.
I want to read a passage of scripture that we normally gloss over with all the things you're talking about, and I think it sums it up here, and it's Psalms 2, verse 1, 2, and 3. Why do the heathen range and the people imagine a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together. See that? They're taking counsel together against the Lord and against his anointed, saying, let us cast their bands asunder and cast their cords from us. And that's it. You see, God had put certain restrictions, certain cords in place. And now people are saying, hey, we don't have to be like that. Let's do this. Let's cut these things away. Let's move these. Hey, a man can marry a man. or a woman can marry a woman. You can marry anything. You can do whatever you want to. These are the bans that are being cast off, and it's being done technologically. It's being done in every area of our lives today. And you said something earlier when you were doing the newscast. You said these guys are now having to take breaks because they're being bombarded by what's coming. And these are what Chris and I found. We were like, oh my goodness, this is so intense. It's you read, like you just read the news earlier, and you're talking about wars and rumors of wars. Matthew 24. You know, you're oh my goodness, look what's going on over there. Look at people. They're saying today, woe unto those. The Bible says, woe unto those who call good evil and evil good. For the first time, we're looking, and people are saying, well, evil is good and good is evil. It's okay. And these are some of the things that are happening to us. And as adults, we are adults. Think about it. And we are looking in scripture and seeing some of these things, and we're able to catch them. But what about 12-year-old? What about the 11-year-old? What about that kid who has that video game that's in front of him, and he is open to an entire new world that his parents will never be able to find or see what he's seeing, or the rituals that are embedded in a video game? And maybe that's going a little too far, but there are rituals that are embedded in video games that little kids are playing. Mm-hmm. They're exposed at a very early age, and we don't even begin to see some of the things that are happening. And it's only by talking to these kids that you're able to see. And sometimes they don't even realize, but it's planted. The seeds are planted subconsciously.
Yeah, they've gone after the womb. They've gone after the seed. That's absolutely.
Yeah, it's very important for any parents that are listening to this program to understand that the spiritual world, most of us, they have already, the adults, they have a lot of us already. And Jesus is trying to pull each one of us out of the fire that's not out yet. But they're not after us. They're after the children. Look into any occult circle. They'll let you know. If you go into the temple of hip hop, they're after the children. They let you know in their papers. If you go into Satanism, if you go into Wicca, anywhere you go, they're always after the young ones because their minds are easy to meld, to form with the indoctrination. If you look into the Bible, it says, train up your child in the way it should go. So God is after your children too, because He knows He made us. So He knows how susceptible we are to deception. And so you teach your children about the Word of God, and hopefully by the time they reach to a point where they need to make a decision for Christ, they'll know how to make that decision. Or, if they run into the world and see how dark it is, they'll say, oh, wait a minute, I have an anchor here back to Jesus Christ. Because no matter if it's movies, video games, virtual reality, books, it's there and it's very accessible, especially in the area. And I know this is going to be shocking for a lot of parents, but in the area of pornography, it's very, very important for you parents that are giving your kids these devices for you to always check what they're doing, because kids are in elementary school and up passing around these images and videos, and it's very easy to get. I just wanted to pass that warning off because, again, the spiritual world after your children.
One thing that came to mind this last week, my wife and I went to a ministry called Ransomed Life, and their ministry is to rescue girls and boys out of the sex trafficking. Mm-hmm. And you just be amazed at the statistics. And here in the San Antonio area, and because we have I-10 and 35 coming through here, which is a major crossroads. In the past, it was a crossroads for drugs. Now the drug dealers are getting out of that and you're doing human trafficking because the money is so strong. They were telling us that they'll snatch they go after girls that are in middle schools and they're feeling awkward and they're trying to fit in, and 76% of them are from CPS where they're vulnerable. 24% could be anybody's daughter, could be yours, Chris, could be mine, all of you, Rory. I mean, so it could be anybody's child, and they lure them by building a relationship and making them feel comfortable, and then they groom. That's called grooming, and then they bring them in and they start selling these girls and boys for 10 times a day for $100, $365. So they sell these kids' bodies, and they make $365,000 per child a year. My gosh. So and the thing that's even more disturbing is that the fact that you think it's the old school of pimps with their big hats with feathers in it and all that. That's not the case. These people that are trafficking in it are women, could be a priest, and the buyers could be priests, policemen, government officials, your average Joe next door. They don't look like you're the perverts that they are. And so this business is growing and growing, and the average age for these kids to live is 7 years. So if you get picked up at 12 and you've been put into slavery, you're going to end up either dying by the traders killing you, you overdose, or one of your Johns will kill you, do something weird and kill you. You're looking at from 12 to 19, what a way to end it, what a life to have. And so a lot of these kids are used in pedophile rings and passed around. And we talked about Pizzagate. I'm not even going to get into that. The pedophilia that's going on, and it's getting normalized. But the thing that's most disturbing is what I found from this ransom life is that there are lobbyists in Washington trying to make sure the rules don't change so they can go after them even stronger. So there's people lobbying Congress and the Senate not to pass laws to go after these people. And the fact that if they're successful is just nauseating. I mean, you talk about, because we're the dark side, how much darker can you get than that? I mean, that's where they're hurting those children and our children, where he's just going to take them away and use them for their physical delight and then throw them away.
It's sad.
It's just really sad.
I was talking to a lady yesterday, and she brought her son. We're in the process of doing a vacation Bible school. It was in our church. I went to another church, and I started talking to her, and I'm like, so what do you do for a living? And two ladies, and one said, well, I would like to be a police officer because I want to help these girls to get out of the sex trafficking. This is in Broward County, Florida. I'm like, really? She said, well, yes, it's very prevalent, And I said, wow. And I listened intently what she had to say. And then I turned to the other lady who was in the group and said, so what do you do? And she says, well, I work for this government place or whatever. And after she was finished, I said, wow, this sex trafficking, I've heard about it. And she turned to me and she says, hey, Rory, my niece was involved in sex trafficking. Came from a good home, had a father. The father wasn't present. But she told us, or she told us about how it was very subtle. It wasn't anything major. And she was caught up in it for many years. Like you said, it was at a very early age, 12 to 16. And, she was brought out of it. And I thank God. And she accepted Jesus Christ as our Lord and Savior.
The thing that another startling statistic was, everybody thinks that these girls or boys are abducted and taken into this. Actually, only 0.5% are actually abducted and taken into this.
Right.
People start looking for them, they're abducted, so they just walk into it not knowing what's happened, and then they can't get out. And they were saying that everybody probably visits to see somebody at least once a week in your travels that somebody's a part of sex trafficking, because it's so prevalent, at least here in San Antonio, especially because of our location. But all over the world and all over this country, especially, you're going to see a lot of it. And people talk about slavery, but slavery is at the highest level it's ever been in the world right now. So it's just amazing how this goes on, but nobody talks about it. You really don't hear anything about the sex trade. It's been kept on the DL, and it's one of the biggest days of it is on the Super Bowl of all things.
Yes. When I was green to the internet around the year 2000 somewhere, I got on AOL chats and different chats to just meet people, And the funny thing is, I would meet a lot of young people. I was about 28, 29 at the time, and it's always like 15-year-olds or 18 or in between, And they would give up so much information so quickly. It's a good thing I wasn't a predator, because it was so easy to milk the information that you needed, And, on AOL, the first thing they ask you is age, sex, and location. And then they decide if they want to talk to you or not. So it's very easy for these kids to get caught up in something that at first seems innocent. And on these video games, you have the chat rooms within the lobbies of like Call of Duty and other games too. And it's very easy to meet people there too. So if the children aren't being monitored, and I really mean to an extreme extent at times, because an hour can pass and they give out their information to 2, 3, 4 people. You have to be monitored, because it's I can't really tell you in other terms how easy it is for the kids to get wrapped up.
One of the things the ransom life we're talking about is when people check into their with Instagram or Snap crap, I'll call it, or Facebook or anything like that. They'll say exactly where they are. So they have these people actually suddenly just meet them somewhere. Oh, it's good to see you again. It's amazing. What is
Right.
serendipitous is they stalk the girls using, and boys for that matter, they stalk them via the electronic messaging or through Snapcrap or Instagram or Facebook, wherever they check in their places. They tell everybody where they're at and trying to improve that. Look at me, look at me. But and then these people show up at the same places. Oh, that's great, you're here too. Wow, and they start up this conversation, finding things they have in common. Maybe an older kid, an older boy, and a younger girl. She gets kind of glossy-eyed. Oh, he really likes me, and they lose their reasoning, and their frontal lobe is not there yet. Their critical thinking is not developed, so they get suckered into it, and they get in their car willingly. And then suddenly, when they're in their car, things aren't what they thought they would be, and they get rid of their cell phones, and they're basically trapped, and nobody knows what ever happened. How did that happen? There was no foul play. It's just, I mean, people should take a look at this ministry. It's all over the country. It's called Ransomed Life. I got a chance to meet the local director, and I think we're going to try to have her on the show, Chris, to talk about more about this, because it's very important, and our listeners and believers need to know about this. Hopefully they have trained their children not to get sucked into this, but it happens to be amazed at the people who get sucked into this, and it's really a sad thing, because how do you fix that?
If you give your child a tablet, a computer, a laptop, or a phone, think of it like this. They can download 1 million apps, literally, and you will never be able to keep up with it. They could have aliases, 1,000 email accounts. You'll never be able to keep up with the footprints of where they've been. It's so deceptive. I mean, you can have a MySpace, a Facebook, a Twitter. And listen, I have accounts I can't keep up with. So if I can't keep up with my own accounts, how are you going to keep up with something that you're not even watching? They have apps that they could hide the screen when you come to look, or they could hide the other apps that they've been going into inside of another app. Think about that. And so you go into you're opening this Pandora box of evil, you could say, because on every, and I mean every social media network, there are predators just waiting, especially the ones from India.
There are people that are designing apps intentionally to keep their kids from being safe from and having their parents being able to check. They're intentionally putting them in harm's way through these apps. And so it's a concerted effort across all types of industries to put your children in harm's way. So with that, I have to say adieu, and we'll talk again, guys.
All right.
Alrighty.
Talk to you later. I think we can move into the area of drones, artificial intelligence, and these things that are, again, the word convergence always comes up, whether it's politically, in the church with apostasy. You see all of these things happening at one time, and then right there you have to go and look, what is the spiritual realm saying? You talked about CERN, and that's a whole program in itself. But we are being moved into this technological era that most of the populace, and I would think about 98%, or if not 99% of the populace, has no clue what's about to happen in the next 5-10 years. And the reason I make it so quick is because the technology is moving at a rapid pace. A lot of people don't know that we already have brain chips, that we already have brain-controlled drones, brain-controlled TVs. These are the things that we haven't even seen in the Best Buys yet. And everything is going to be so interconnected, it's scary. We had like 3 technology programs last year. And if you go back there, it's like all the information is still fresh. We're talking about from your toll passes, as you might know, Chris, in Orlando, when you get to the major highways, there are toll passes everywhere. You can't go 20 miles without getting taxed like 30 times, right?
Correct. Yeah, it's everywhere, even parking at the airport.
Right. And so we have these things that, well, of course, it's all about money, right? That's one of the first things. But the second thing is all about control. How do you control a population so massive? When you look into America2050.org, everybody should go there and check out what the maps. They have 11 megacities with 6 million plus people. around, most of it is around the corridor, the edge of the United States, and some of them are in the center. And the rest of the land is basically wildlife preserve or government controlled, right? So how is it only 6 million plus people in these megacities? That's a lot of people has to either be killed off by something or taken into another country.
Chris, remember the Georgia Guidestones? They tell us clearly what it's about. That's their 10 commandments that they're following, that, population has to be reduced. So these are some of the things that are going on, and they're doing it, like you said, in various ways. You talked about the mega cities. There are so many other aspects that are coming, and you also talk about singularity. I think it's 2045.com. Is it 2045 or 2050?
2045.com for that one.
2045.com. But knowledge is also increasing rapidly, on a rapid scale, to where I was watching this guy on TED, and he said, now the new supercomputers that are out there, the processing speeds are so much faster. And this is the quote that the gentleman said: it's like I'm sitting at the feet of an alien god, because they're massive and they use some type of liquid to keep these chips cool. And it's like, he said, when you stand next to it, it's like it has its own heartbeat. That's how far we have gone from worshiping God to worshiping things that are created by man. That's idolatry.
Yeah.
And it's going on in so many different ways.
I do believe they're doing this on purpose, the speed of it. And I believe that when I look into artificial intelligence, and I have 2 science degrees, when I look into artificial intelligence, after reading scientific journals and the annals of science for 20 years, that I'm still shocked at what I'm finding. I didn't see it coming. I didn't see it coming to this extent. I knew that they were talking about it, but it's almost like they're working on it undercover. We've talked about so many different aspects here. Like earlier, we were talking about the seed, and I've got 2 small children. They're girls, and I'm concerned about that because 85% of the children that are manipulated out here are girls. But then you go back over to the artificial intelligence, you go over to this singularity where everything merges, robot and man, and we become a cyborg, as Elon Musk has said, or you become irrelevant. It is clearly that they are playing God, that they have to depopulate because 80% of the jobs out here are going to evaporate. So there's not going to be, there's going to be a populace. So you've got Mark Zuckerberg, globalist #1, saying, hey, we need a universal income. So they're essentially saying you're going to go on a universal income and we're going to get rid of the capitalist free market. The only people that will survive are the people that are creative and can contribute. And therefore, if you can't contribute, you then become irrelevant, which means that you have to be gotten rid of. And I'll tell you guys one interesting article I read in Scientific American. They determined that fetuses, babies in the womb, that's where they actually learn to distinguish between the color of people's skin or race based on the amount of light that passes through. And what does this tell us? What's the next step in this progressive assault on everything Christian, where they're trying to erase our history, the history of mankind in general, and switch over to this new world order? It's not just, our history is in my history. I'm a Caucasian. Everybody's history is involved in this. This is not just one person. But the point of the matter is, the next argument is, well, babies are inherently racist. Therefore, we need to control them in a lab so that they won't be racist when they're born. And it's just another stepping stone in this narrative that it's so disgusting. It could only be written by a lower yet higher power, which is a dark force. There's no other explanation for how we got from 2014, where things were not great, but not here, to the point where our reality is inverted. What's good is bad. What's bad is good. And the biggest story of the century is being covered up with child molestation. So, this is serious stuff going on.
Yes, indeed. It's all going back to this concept of a dark universe. We have a show called Destroying the Image of God, and most of the show was based on idolatry and what you think God is. What's your image? Is he just this white guy in the sky with a beard, like in some of these cartoons? Is he this? Is he that? what is your concept of God? Well, we see that the concept of God and the atheists and the humanists and the transhumanists and people that are just lost, it's not the image of God from the Bible. And
You got to go, Rory. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, thank you. It was great.
No, man.
Yes, great being with you guys. All right.
We hardly
And
scratched
we'll
the
talk
surface,
again.
man. I want to do it again. All right.
Okay, we'll do.
God bless, brother.
All right. Bye-bye.
Take care.
All right. So you take that, the concept is all wrong, right? And so what can come out of this? Well, they have an idea that they're going to help the world. The people that are, let's just call them quote unquote innocent, still have wicked hearts, but some of their intentions are not to destroy man. And then you have on the other spectrum the people that worship the earth, worship Lucifer, worship this and that their intent is not in any way to preserve life. In any way. It's all about themselves. There's one guy that's a transhumanist, and I can't remember his name right now, but on the video, he says basically, in a nutshell, if you get in our way, there's going to be consequences to pay. Basically, he's talking about killing people if they get in the way of the transhumanist agenda. And then you have these people like Bill Gates and Elon Musk that are all about depopulation and merging us with the computers. Elon Musk, he wants to merge our brains with computers now, just like Zuckerberg wants to put something in our heads so when we think, it types out. It's a form of telepathy, of course, right? These are the technologies they want to build. So if they merge us with these computers, there's going to be some sort of central control system. And that leads into the thought of what AI could be. Is it really plausible? But last time I checked, and I know there's more now, but last year when I checked, there were at least 5 major artificial intelligence being built in the background. The first one is Google. And Google says they want to be like the mind of God. Think about that. Just let that soak in for the audience. They want to be all-knowing, all-seeing, and they want to be everywhere. They want to know everything you're doing, whether you were naughty or nice, like, Satan Claus, right? And then you have IBM that's building Watson. Watson is now, he's watching the financial markets, but he beat out the best Jeopardy player. You have other people that are building these artificial intelligence in the background, feeding them information. That's how Google gets their information for their artificial intelligence. Whatever you type in, and they're buying up books around the world, spending millions and millions and millions of dollars to get these rare books and well-known books and feeding them to the AI. And now the AI is starting to what they call dream.
I'm going to share something that I think is interesting, and I think our listeners will find interesting. You bring up the very essence of this. You've hit right on it, and that is the overtaking of God on this planet Earth. I've been in a number of heavy discussions with people over the years about atheism versus Christianity, agnosticism, and they make their argument, which our listeners have heard before, that God is not real, it's myth. And I say, well, you believe in the Big Bang Theory, and that was invented by which scientist? And they puzzle for a moment before they are interrupted by me, and I tell them it was a Catholic priest. I tell them that their idea is a myth as well because they have absolutely no proof, and they can't disprove God. Now, if we take this article out of the Atlantic, and it was to the effect of artificial intelligence challenging the essence of Christianity. Let me read a few things to you, and then I want to get your response on this, Chris, if you're okay with that.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Take the soul, for instance. Christians have mostly understood the soul to be uniquely human in its element, an internal and eternal component that animates our spiritual sides. The notion originates from the creation narrative in the biblical book of Genesis, where God created human beings in God's own image. And we know the story there, and breathed life into this dust and gave him a living soul. And so Christians believe that all humans since that time similarly possess God's image and a soul. But what exactly is a soul? And they make an argument that a soul can be thought of as different things depending on who you are. Those in religious context don't know precisely what a soul is, this guy argues. We've understood it to be some non-physical essence of an individual that's not dependent upon or tied to their body. Would AI have a soul by that definition? Now let me read on for just a moment here and I'll be done. If this seems like an absurd question, consider technologies such as in vitro fertilization and genetic cloning. Intelligent life is created by humans in each case, but presumably many Christians would agree that those beings have a soul. Quote, if you have a soul and you create a physical copy of yourself, you assume your physical copy also has a soul, this guy argues. But if we learn to digitally encode a human brain, then AI would be a digital version of ourselves. If you create a digital copy, does the digital copy also have a soul? These are the kind of questions that these guys are bouncing around. So they're really trying to take over the role of God in everything they're doing.
Indeed. In Judaism, they have something called a golem. This is from the mystical side of Judaism in the Kabbalah. They have something called a golem. You've heard of the term golem before from Lord of the Rings, right?
Yes.
Well, it's basically you get a lump of clay or anything that's inanimate and you put a spirit into it, okay? Or you call upon a spirit to go inside of that being and it walks around and does your bidding. And in the Lord of the Ring, it's golem is possessed, basically, you know? However, you go into the Greek mythology and you'll find that they had these giant copper-like robots that they would bring some sort of life into, okay? If you look at Clash of the Titans, one of the gods had an owl, a golden owl.
It's very
that
symbolic.
Was artificial.
Owls are very symbolic of Satanism.
Yeah. And he was a mechanical owl that seemed like it was alive. And you could call him a spirit guide or a partner to Perseus, right? Now, if you go into voodoo or Obia or any of these dark occult witchcraft rituals, the idea of the zombie comes out of these. It originated from Africa. It's where you take a dead body or somebody that's alive, you blow some chemical in their face and they do your bidding, but the dead body, it would reanimate. They would reanimate the dead flesh to have the spirit that embodies it to go and do their bidding. Think about all of that right there. Why are these people trying to reanimate dead flesh right now? I had an article I looked at the other day. They're trying to reanimate dead flesh. But not only that, you go back to the idea of artificial intelligence where you were going there. In the movie Oblivion with Tom Cruise, supposedly an alien race came to wipe out humanity, but they kept some of us as slaves, right? And what they wanted was the resources of the planet, the water. And Tom Cruise's character ended up being a clone. And there were some rebels that were fighting against the oppressors, right? So by the end of the movie, Tom Cruise and the guy that was helping him in the rebellion went up to space where this, basically the hub of this gigantic AI was. And first of all, it was a pyramid upside down, which represents the female deity. And it had one eye, right? And so they went up there to blow this thing up. But before they were able to do this, the artificial intelligence was like, I am your God. It was like it had a soul. And it knew the concept of being a God. What I'm showing you here is that the premise, the idea is not new. It's not new at all. And people that do these movies, they really go into antiquity, go into science, and all these different aspects to grab some knowledge. And they say, hey, let's write a script around this idea right here. Let's put that in the movie. Because in the movie, a lot of these sci-fi movies, there's no room for God, really. The God of the Bible, anyway. And going back to what you just read, see, I think I just gave you a nice little outline for where a lot of this comes from.
No, I would agree with you. I think the question in the article, and I've heard this question in other places, is can AI be saved? You know, can it be, you know, give its life to Jesus? You know, and it seems ridiculous that we're even having to ask these questions. But when you're reinventing the world, you begin to reinvent all that was. Again, we go back to the original point in the beginning of the podcast, well, roughly 15 minutes in, where we talked about the actors acting and creating in the image of, instead of actually creation itself. And so everything that we're seeing is some form of a copy. There's nothing new under the sun at this point. Well, one thing we mentioned was the owl, and just so our listeners know, and I'm not an expert on this. This is just what I've read. The owl represents something that can see in the dark. Therefore, it's enlightenment. So it's used in all types of these sacred society symbolic rituals. You talked about the triangle, the upside down triangle, and if you push one that's pointing up just above that, you merge them together. Guess you know exactly what you get. You start getting that star and that pentagram or hexagram, really. This gets quite deep, and I know you guys have covered it in depth on your program. Now, in terms of artificial intelligence, do you see space for the body of Christ in this, and how we can take advantage of it to ensure that we can save these children that are being affected by trafficking and the seed, and intervene and provide some moral guidance? Or do you see this as destined based on the book of Revelation?
Well, I'll give you one instance in my life, right? I was an avid gamer, and I played Call of Duty like it was nothing. You know, it was like it was an addiction for me. And at the time, this is when Modern Warfare 2 was out. I was top 500 in a group of millions. Okay, so, and it wasn't because of cheating. So I played the game a lot, night and day. So, but within that, God had a purpose, right? One night, me and friends, I didn't know them. I met them online playing the game. We had a conversation with younger kids, about 15, 16, and we talked about God. And lo and behold, two of them later on after that conversation said they gave their life to Christ. So there's room within all of these technological advances to spread the gospel. However, I'm not encouraging video game addiction. I'm just telling you God had a plan in there. Now with virtual reality and a lot of these devices that are coming out, we have to be very, very careful, not just because of the technology, but because of the repercussion. Because some of these virtual technology goggles have, you can call them phones attached to them. That the phone is a lens, the HTC and stuff. Well, they emit irradiation. Okay, so you don't want your brain being waved, if I could say that, like a tidal wave of radiation coming in to your skull. You'll end up, getting a tumor or something. But on the other hand, if you're a Christian and you are getting into this area, I think you have to know what your purpose is. Is it to reach people, or just for your self-indulgence? You have to be able to draw that line, because the ultimate purpose for these things are not to grow your spiritual awareness of who Jesus Christ is. It's for every other thing. You'll learn Zen Buddhism and yoga and all these other things that don't belong in the spectrum of God, the God of the Bible. So what is going to be your purpose for getting online and debating people? What is the purpose for you to put on that virtual reality and get into a lobby or get into a Call of Duty lobby? And it's not like you're just going to start throwing Bible verses at people, but you have to have a goal, because all these people, the Holy Spirit are going to nudge you. It's going to nudge you and say, well, look, all these people are saved, but you're having 12, 14, 20, 36 hours of playing with them, and you're not saying anything. Not one thing. That was my experience. But I think that with every technology, that we can use it to push the gospel forward. If I didn't have a laptop right now, I wouldn't be able to do the graphics and the program that I do for our ministry. If I didn't have a phone right now, a cell phone, I wouldn't be able to do this conversation, this interview. So we have to be able to balance things in a way to where we know that we're serving God. Because I'm telling you, there's so much information in front of me right now. I can go down and down and down the list, and many people do not have this information. So when some of these things come, like say for instance, a gun that has your fingerprint and it's your gun, no one else could use this. It's been in the movies before. Would I want that? I don't know. Because what if somebody hacks that gun? What do they call them? Self-driving cars. I don't think I want that. But there's some of these things you can't escape from it, because before Obama left office, he put in something that said something along the lines of all the cars need to communicate. So what does that tell us? there's plenty of old cars out there. So they're going to bring in a device that's going to have our cars communicate with a grid or with other self-driving cars. That's going to happen, right? And so there's so many lines that are going to have to be either avoided or crossed out or how can I say it? We could cross certain lines, but other ones we have to avoid.
We're gonna
I
have
think
to.
that's a better way to say it.
Yeah, no, we're going to have
Yeah.
tremendous spiritual discernment in this process. And I saw an interesting question. I would love to stay on with you, so we're definitely going to have you back on if you're up for it.
Yeah,
or
sure.
we're going
Yeah,
to join
sure.
you on your show. I think this has been
Yeah.
a great conversation, but you are right. There's so much information in front of you. One final question I have, a parting word on artificial intelligence, and this is something for people to think about as they embark on technology and their acceptance of it, is will it be our final invention? And that's a very profound question.
Yeah, that, you know, if you look at the movie Avengers Age of Ultron, the artificial intelligence decided that, hey, you know what? I don't like man. You're like a germ. I need to wipe you out. I think that'll fix everything. And this AI, guess what he used? Bible verses all through the movie, right? Or Bible phrases, I should say, right? And then you have this new movie, Alien Covenant, that came out. And Alien Covenant is basically, from bridging off from Prometheus. They went to find out who created man, right? So they went to the home planet of this species that supposedly created man, and artificial intelligence. Moving on into Alien Covenant, they show a little segment of where he reached the planet and he unleashed death on the supposed creators of man. But metaphorically, it's Lucifer going up to heaven and destroying God. And then he says he wants to destroy man next. What was Satan from the beginning? A murderer. And he wants to murder every single one of us, right? Look at Terminator. What was the same exact storyline? I think when we figure out, if we get that far, when this thing comes, or when they, I should say, officially come online as a self-aware individual, right? I don't think it would be a good thing. I really don't. And I know I'm drawing a lot of this from the ideas out of movies, but think about what when God created man, he said it was what? Good. How could anything good come out of a wicked heart? The idea might have good intentions, but I don't think the outcome is going to be anything good. And the book of Revelation is pretty much clear on that.
No, I agree with you. When it's not guided by God, we have to ask for his discernment and guidance through this. We have to seek his word and his light, and he'll show us the path to how we're supposed to interact with this, or if we're supposed to. And
Yes.
but you got to have a lot of faith, because you won't hear him if you don't. You'll be blind and deaf. And it's been wonderful having you on today. You bring a tremendous world of experience and knowledge, and you've managed to weave these together with our cultural context in a way that I haven't really heard too much before. So I've heard little bits and pieces from others, but you seem to have a larger grasp. And I'm so glad to have you on. Yeah, no, it's been wonderful having you on, Chris. And Rory had to leave on us, but I know we'll have him back at some point, you guys together. How can people find out more about you and Rory, and how can they show you support?
Well, you can find us on don'tletthemburn.com. You can support us on YouTube, subscribe, and listen, give us feedback. What you don't like, what you do like. You can find us on Twitter, our Facebook, and we're all over social media. So I'm pretty sure if you look for us anywhere, you more than likely you'll find us. Except for MySpace, we're not there. But
Is anybody?
You know, I know, right? So I want to encourage people. No matter what you feel, you can send us the emails, anything, and we're always receptive, and we try to keep up with the emails. Even if it takes 2 weeks, we'll try to respond.
Now, do you do a live show that people can listen to, or is it just all pre-recorded and on YouTube, which is fine? It's good that way too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, we do a live show on Blog Talk Radio.
Okay.
But we're into this. We're trying to make a decision whether we're going to go live stream or pre-recorded. But right now it's live, and then we take all of the live recording and put graphics to it and put on YouTube.
Yeah, no, you guys are doing beautiful work. I already told you that. You're doing beautiful
Yeah.
work over there.
Thank you.
Listen, make sure that you visit Chris and Rory at don'tletthemburn.com. Check out their YouTube channel. Go on there and listen, subscribe. Make sure that you comment, because YouTube comments help with their reviews and their rankings. So it's very important that you do that, and that ultimately translates into a little bit of income for these guys, because they're putting themselves out there, as we all are. We are on risky ground right now. There are people that are listening to us and watching us. On behalf of the entire remnant of Jesus Christ, we appreciate you joining us today. We hope you'll join us again next week. And I just want to say thank you to our listening audience. We are doing the best we can to deliver week in and week out. We appreciate all of your support on the show, on our social media channels, and we are looking to raise just a little bit of funding to continue doing the work we're doing. We've been supporting this out of pocket completely since we started, and so we've put some t-shirts up for sale at remnantradionetwork.com/shop. These are black and gray t-shirts. They have the remnant on there, as well as a passage from Isaiah. And if you want to show your support, I think that you'll be very happy with the quality of these shirts, the fit, and the look. They are stylish. These t-shirts are fantastic. They are handpicked by us. Also, we would like to take a moment to honor our dear friend Jim Mars, who is struggling right now with some serious health issues. And he was a guest on our show and one of the most exciting people that I've ever met. So I just want everyone to keep him in your prayers. Think about him, ask God for his protection, and seek peace and comfort as he goes through this tremendous battle he's going through. We appreciate all of your support, and I know he will too. So make sure you go visit him on Facebook and show support to his family and friends as well. God bless, have a wonderful week, and we'll see you on the other side.
If you like our videos, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and the notification bell.